I am going to be talking about Deltarune in a very unique way, and that's that I'm going to be viewing it from a very outward, overheaded kind of way. I'm not going to be talking much about the lore and what's supported there, although that's important and I probably will bring it up a lot to support my arguments. But mostly I'm just going to be talking about what I think will work good story structure-wise. And so I think that's a really fun way to look at theorizing, because nobody does that because it's kind of stupid. You really don't really get the full themes of a story until the story's done. But I wanted to see what I could do to try to pinpoint where the story of Deltarune is going before it actually shows what's happening. Deltarune, right now, as it stands to me, is a story about you've got these three figures, and that's the fun gang, Susie, Delty, and Relzen. What is the point of this story of Deltarune? What does it mean to Toby Fox, Tobal Foxhound, to make this story about Deltarune? Why is this important? What themes is he trying to get across? Well, there's a lot of main themes. The first main theme that he's going into is storytelling. And this can be in the form of games. This can be in the form of writing. And mostly just those two things, because those are the things we actually see. We have Garrison talking about how he's a writer, and we have lots of just games within games imagery, especially in chapter 3. And so this is all about storytelling and how to convey a story, especially through gaming. And it's, as you would expect, the narrative of Deltarune gets kind of meta in order to explain these points. That's just how it decides to operate. Meta is kind of just like a very tricky to get right nowadays because everyone tries to use it. But Toby Fox so far has handled it pretty decently, I would say. You know, I think I could do better. But the main idea that sprouted from chapters 1 and 2, when they were the hot stuff, is that Deltarune was, the Dark World in particular, was a place of imagination. It was a place of escapism. It was a place where Chris, along with Azriel, who I'll just put there, hey, look at him. Chris and Azriel could jump into the Dark World, and they could say, hey, let's just enjoy ourselves. Let's create something. Let's create a story for ourselves where we feel empowered and have fun and all that good stuff. Azriel disappears. Don't know why. Might be dead, according to some theorists, but we don't exactly know why Azriel's gone. But clearly Azriel has left a gaping hole in the function of Chris's daily life, especially now with the divorce of Chris's parents. So now Chris has said, hey, I'm taking Susie now, or Susie's getting dragged into this at the very least, into the Dark World. And so now we have this connection of Chris and Susie being heroes and Rouse being a prince from the dark. This is the Deltarune. It's the three main factions. And of course, the upward triangles are symbolizing the Lightners, and the downward triangles symbolizing the Darkner in the world beneath them. And that matches Rouse, and the upper ones matching Chris and Susie. I started wondering and kind of extrapolating that this is not the only way to apply these figures, especially because we've got chapter 3 with their game within a game. And this one is very interesting to me because it kind of asks you to say, hey, let's look at layers. Let's look at layers of media. You've got Chris playing a game in chapter 3. And so now you are playing a game about playing a game. And this is weird. This is a lot to take in, especially because you've got your teensy little Chris from your game within a game suddenly popping out of it in the kind of secret half weird route. And this is concerning because it's like saying no matter how deep you go into these abstracted worlds, guess what? It's all one video game. Like this guy and this guy all exist within the same plane. And so it's trying to basically just break down this barrier of a screen. It is breaking that down. This doesn't matter. This little guy and this guy are part of the same reality. What can you extrapolate from that? I think it's kind of meant to make you wonder, what's the difference then between this big ol' monitor and my big ol' monitor that I bought at Best Buy for $300 because I don't know how to budget. And that's the question it makes you want to ask. Clearly there is a difference because both of these are within one video game, and this is the border of reality, mine is. But it makes you try to just like question that for a second, which is kind of exactly what Undertale does. And it's not like beating you over the head with it. It's not saying, hey, Chris isn't turning to the camera and saying, hey, I know I'm in a video game. Like, that's not what's happening. But they are trying to just use in-game clues to try to hint to you that there's not 100% clear distinction between what's real and what's not. Or at the very least, it's saying like, hey, you can just quit being invested in this game and you can say, hey, this is just a video game, it doesn't affect me. But the game accounts for that, and you have to be aware of it. So the interesting thing is then, if Deltarune is kind of about this, I'm going to go back to it. If Deltarune is about these two characters telling a story and connecting through a dark world, because that's basically what Chris and Susie are doing. They are connecting via a dark world. Like, there's that connection between them. They are now friends because Chris has shared with them seemingly a creation of their own with Susie in order to connect with her. That seems to be what the kind of theming of it is. And so then you have to wonder, is there an upper level to this? Is there an even higher level to this? Because that's what I started wondering when I saw these screens within screens within screens, these games within games within games. What if we say, hey, I'm seeing this game within my game, and now I'm seeing this Deltarune within perhaps a higher Deltarune? It's a weird way of putting it, but this is really kind of crackpot theories, and it's interesting that I'm starting with this, but whatever. So what if there is a higher Deltarune? So now we've got this one, which is Chris, Susie, Rouse. And what if there's a higher one now? One that has maybe, well, Deltarune as the dark world, as the creation that connects two people. And so we have Rouse, who represents the dark world, and that's the creation. That's the story that's being told to connect these 2 points. And now we have Deltarune is the creation that's connecting 2 points. Chris is presumably the creator of the dark world, and who's the creator of this? Well, I don't want to just say it's Toby Fox, because I don't know, it seems to be not exactly what he's trying to do. He's always being very subtle with his metaphors or with his meta text. For now, I'm going to call it Gaster, because that's kind of what's his Twitter account has just been kind of role-playing as Gaster. Gaster's the one connecting with you at the very beginning of chapter 1 to create the Goner Maker, to say, hey, check out this survey, check out this game, connect to it, play it, and let's see how it goes. So Gaster is kind of taking the role there. And then the last one is you. So now there's forming a connection because of this creation. A connection between the creator and the player over a created world. And so I just think that's an interesting parallel that we could draw from this, because Gaster is saying at the very end of chapter 4, my Deltarune. We don't exactly know what that is about, but I think it's very possible that Deltarune could mean a lot of different things. It can mean the legend, it can mean the prophecy, it can mean the form of the actual symbol itself, this one right here. But it can also mean this connection between these 3 points and what that creates. Now, this is where I'm kind of just going full into just like wondering and speculating. What is the angel in that case, just from like a storytelling standpoint? It doesn't matter what character it is right now. I'm just trying to figure out what the angel is according to this kind of metric I set up for myself between creator, player, and world. And the angel, I have strongly been wondering for a while, is the angel an actual character or more of a concept? This isn't out of left field exactly, because we've got that creepy little kid from Undertale who looks something like this. Chara was such a weird character, right? Chara, Kara, whatever you want to call it, is a weird character because they were a character within the world, but when they describe themselves, they say, every time you leveled up, every time you attacked, every time you felt good from progressing these stats, that was me. It's such a weird description And it's kind of good that it comes at the very end of the game because it's just so out there. It's like, what do you even make of that? How do you apply that to the narrative that you've consumed and understand it holistically? I really don't know how you can understand what Chara is without just some serious legwork on the reader's part of like, what is this meant to represent? And right now I'm just thinking Chara is a concept. It's the concept of Chara is basically baked into the UI of the game, this connection, this user experience of I enjoy getting these feelings from these stats, from becoming stronger, from all this stuff. I'm wondering if the angel is a very similar thing where the angel represents something about this connection between a creator, their creation, and the person who partakes in the creation. I'm just going to call it the player just because it could be a reader, it could be a viewer, it could be a whatever. But player is most applicable because it's a video game. What is this thing floating above it? I have no clue. If I would guess, I would say the angel is the player. Like a lot of people right now are thinking that the heart, the player, is the angel. Like that's what's being obscured from us at the very end of chapter 4. The player as the angel does make a lot of sense, right? I mean, it is like this outside force that's coming in and having a huge effect on the entire landscape of reality as these in-game characters understand it. And so, of course, it would be a huge factor in the prophecy. And so it's very natural for players to assume that. And there's lots of little bits and details that you can kind of glean from it to support your arguments, but there's also kind of lots of pieces against it, especially because the in-game character Noelle very well could be just straight up the angel because there's so much imagery associated with her for being an angel. So I'm not exactly sure what this layer 1 of narrative, this ground zero of narrative, is meant to have its angel be. So that's why I'm trying to figure that out. It could be a red herring that Noelle's the angel. That's definitely a possibility. It seems like it's so overt, right? And at the same time, the heart is given a lot of angel imagery because in chapter 4, like a literal angel thing pops on them and the player's always just like interacting with this angel imagery. It's hard to tell. Like it's deliberately obtuse to keep the mystery going, which is fair. And I think both of them are going to be effectively an angel in some way, shape, or form. It's possible the angel is never going to be fully described within the text of the game. But thinking again conceptually, we've got our creator, we've got our player, we've got our creation. What's left in this dynamic? When I'm playing a video game and Tony Fox is the one who's created it and sharing it with me, who else is in there, you know? Who else is in this dynamic to be like, hey, I'm part of this too. And I can't think of any particular person. And so that leaves me with one additional thing, and it's actually something I'm going to pull up a YouTube video for. When the skies get dark, they need something. Just a little something to shine on them and light their path. I'm not going to say that games can save the world or anything like that, but you can save someone's day. This is very just like sentimental and straightforward, it's just a nice message. And when times are tough, just one more day of smiles can make a huge difference. But what's so special about indie games? That is heart. When people make games, they put their hearts into the game. The creator's individuality, the creator's dream, the memory that the creator couldn't forget, the nightmare that the creator wanted to forget, the creator's love, that is the creator's heart. Okay, increases the chance that the player's heart will match the creator's. When the player's whose heart matches the creator's, something strange happens. The game screen flashes like a cursed mirror. The player's heart begins to shine. That player will be changed forever. This is a very interesting speech because it's exactly what I think about just being an artist and creating and telling a story. This is what makes me want to tell stories, is this phenomenon. It's not something I want to use to just say, this is for my theory. Toby Fox said this, and this is part of my theory. This is how Toby Fox views creating a game and views the artistic process. And it's a very important kind of mindset for me in particular, because I agree with it wholeheartedly, and it's what I want art to be. So I feel like I'm on the same page as Toby when he says, I want to create something that will resonate with people, that will create this spark of something deep and something that connects us on a very personal level. I tell my story and that resonates with you, and that creates something special. And I think that that's kind of what this angel might represent. This is not so much a theory anymore. It's kind of just what I think if I were to create a Deltarune for myself, that is what it would be. And that's why when I tweeted about streaming this today, I said it'd be kind of stupid because it's not a real theory. It's just how I view art and how I am therefore viewing Deltarune, because the creator creates something to connect with the player. There's a connection there because of that. And when the player's heart shines with the creator, if they resonate with each other, if they understand each other through this shared communication, then something special is born. That connection, that shining hope, that shining just human passion that lights up between the three of these. I think that's what the angel could represent. It's kind of a weird way to describe it, especially because it doesn't give any additional context to what it would mean in game. I just think that's what this means from a metatextual perspective. I'm not going to write hope. I'm going to write connection. So if the angel is a concept known as connection, what does that mean in game? I haven't really thought about it much outside of that. And this could just blow my whole theory apart if nothing in the game supports this idea that I have. So that's kind of just what I'm going to be brainstorming from this point onward. Whoa, I'm experiencing this. Wow. That's the angel. What does angel's heaven mean? Heaven supposes an idealized location or state of being. I don't know exactly what the angel's heaven would be aside from just a fun game that is appreciated for what it is. I'm trying to find all my... Got so many windows open. There we go. I'll listen to it and search for secrets, yeah. And so if the angel's heaven needs to be banished according to Rouse at the very beginning, and so I'm trying to think, okay, if this angel is what I theorize it to be, what could banishing the angel's heaven mean? Do these characters want to get rid of the player interacting with their world and being connected to it? Possibly. It feels like outside influence from the player through this heart, a very well drawn heart, could be causing them a lot of strife. Maybe the player's existence in this world is what's going to cause it to go to ruin, according to the prophecy. That's an idea. I mean, it's a possibility. We don't really know much more about it. They don't know what the angel looks like, and I know a lot of people, well, we the player don't know what the angel looks like. I know a lot of people were saying, hey, if you play this on the Switch or some kind of non-matte screen, and they say, whoa, that's the angel. I'm gonna type that out now. Angel. And it's just like a black screen, and then, whoa, you see your reflection in it. Whoa, that's me. Then that's what the angel is. It's an interesting theory, and I think it's completely bonkers. I'm not exactly sure that's what's intended, especially because the story is so secretive about any of the major plot reveals that the prophecy would give us. If the player is the angel, and if the angel is going to cause the world to crumble, then what does the knight have to do with any of this? The knight doesn't seem to have much to do with it regardless. I mean, the whole point is to banish the angel's heaven, according to Rouse, right? And the knight is the only thing prophecy says about the knight is that it's going to fight the heroes. That's it. Nothing else. It seems like it's not even going to say it's going to stop them. It's not saying what the knight's intended to do. It's not saying that the heroes must defeat the knight in order to save the world. The knight is kind of almost tangential in just that it is a force with its own, what I assume is its own motivations for doing whatever it's doing, and that is incidentally in the way of the heroes, and so of course they're going to need to fight. The prophecy itself, there's nothing definitively saying the knight needs to do this or that, aside from just fight. What's the point of the angel symbolizing some sort of connection that's formed between a player, a creator, and their creation, aside from the fact that maybe banishing the angel's heaven is, hey, the angel's heaven is this wonderful experience that Susie in particular is having by making friends for the first time and going through these dark worlds. Susie says in chapter 4, I want to do this forever, when she's fighting Gerson. It's like, hey, this is great. Maybe that's exactly what this angel's heaven is Susie just having fun going through these dark worlds, experiencing these little creations and saying, I'm loving this. I am growing to appreciate myself and Chris and Rousey more and more, and I want it to go on forever. And then banishing the Angels Heaven could mean Dark World stuff needs to go away. And that's it. It's all going to go away. Susie will no longer have these adventures, will no longer have these connections, and will no longer have the kind of fun life that she wants. Is that possible? Like, is that possibly a good way of seeing this? Possibly. Like, the very final prophecy that Susie smashes in chapter 4 and says, hey, I'm not going to let that happen. Chris isn't going to let it happen. Rousey, then we're not going to let that happen. You're not going to let that happen, obviously. I have wondered, does it mean these Dark Worlds need to die? Everything in the Dark World needs to die? Because I've been wondering, it's like, right now I'm most convinced that it's Rousey that needs to die. And I think the reason Rousey is so negative and so like, oh, my life doesn't matter, is because he, from whatever point that he started existing, it seems, knew that he was fated to die. It's just like, okay, I'm going to cope with that by saying I'm just a tool. I don't deserve to have feelings. I'm not a real person. And that way, when I die, it's not a tragedy. It's not the worst thing in the world. That seems to fit very well with Rousey's reaction to Susie finding this as well. Like, it's like he starts crying. He starts saying, I'm happy. You don't need to worry about me. I'm sorry to make this about myself. It still could mean Susie has to die as well. I'm not as convinced on that as I think most of the fan base is, or at least the ones that I've seen. Okay, who's dying? Who's dying? These are the main three, like, thoughts there. Nobody seems to think Chris is gonna die, and that seems fair. I don't see how that would be, like, relevant to the story. I watched through that scene a lot of times to try to figure it out. And the thing is, the content kind of works for both of them. When Susie says, I'm not gonna let that happen, Susie says, I'm not going to let that happen first. Then follows it up with Chris, and then follows it up with Rousey. So it's either she's saying, if she's dying, then she's like, I'm not going to let that happen to me. And then, of course, the rest of you aren't either. Or she could be saying, if Rousey is the one dying, I'm not going to let that happen to you. Chris isn't going to let that happen to you. Oh, and by the way, you're also not going to let it happen to you. Quit being stupid. It seems either way, the way she worded it's one of those two. And Chris being kind of sandwiched in the middle just kind of accentuates their lack of importance in this conversation. I know a lot of people say, well, he has no self-esteem. Why would he be so upset about dying? I think the reason he has low self-esteem is because he's upset about dying and is trying to distance himself from these positive attributes of himself in order to cope with it. It's all very possible. But then I started thinking, what if it's just all the Dark World? Because that necessarily includes Rousey, which could make a lot more sense, especially since Susie's entire self-worth is tied up within the Dark World as well. It's a big tragedy for both of them. And naturally, we the player don't want that to happen either. It would be a tragedy for every party involved, basically. So I'm not exactly sure what exactly the prophecy saying who's dying, which one it's going to be. If the Angels Heaven argument stands, like that the angel is this connection between the creator, the player, and the creation, then that certainly means if the Angels Heaven, this wonderful experience that we've been having with this Dark World, is getting banished, then that means, hey, the Dark World's gotta die. That's the only way it's going to happen. And it does seem like as long as these Dark Worlds exist, the situation with their Light World is inherently unstable. Like, we've always got to close Dark Fountains as soon as possible. We've always got to destroy everything that these guys are creating when it comes to Dark Worlds, including Chris. And the final fountain that would probably need to be closed once this whole night situation and this whole bunker situation is cleared up, whatever that might be, seems to be, hey, let's go back to Castletown. And you know those big doors behind the cauldron? This is a castle, by the way. It's really good. There's a door, and on the door, it's got angel wings. And behind it is a dark fountain. And so it does seem, at some point, if our goal is to shut up some dark fountains, that seems to be one that we are going to need to go to and finish off. And that's the one that apparently gives life to Rousey. Is the only reason anyone from any Dark World is able to continue existing outside of the fact that their Dark Fountain was created. It definitely seems to be that if this is closed, everything goes away. Everything is effectively dead, or at least shut off entirely and perhaps forever from the Light World. So that could be the sacrifice that needs to be made, is this final dark fountain that connects everyone to this. And that could, if my angel theory is correct, that the angel concept is a concept of enjoying or connection via creation, then that certainly would say that this tragedy, this angel heaven being banished, will simultaneously be a tragedy and also exactly what the Lightners need to do. It's an interesting thought. I'm not exactly sure how on board with it I even am, but especially with Garrison saying everything needs to come to an end to Susie, who wants it to go on forever. Stories do need to come to an end. It feels weird because the Dark Worlds within the text of it aren't just a creation. They have thoughts and feelings. They are living beings. But it's true that the boundary between their world and ours is not ideal, or the lack of boundary between their world and ours is not ideal. Everything comes crumbling down when these barriers between the monitors, when these games within games, when these barriers come down. That's scary. And we were shown that when this little Chris guy from the video game just walked right out of the screen and started attacking people, or started attacking Chris and kind of Susie at our command. It's so weird. So I don't know. This is a very interesting situation. It does seem to be connected, and so I'm kind of getting more and more confident in this theory as I go on, that the Angel's Heaven is the connection between the light world and the dark world, so to speak, and the adventures you can have with it, and the connections that you make with other people through the dark world. That's what I'm wondering. I'm not sure how upsetting that would be to Susie. I mean, Susie definitely wouldn't like it if the end of the prophecy said the dark worlds need to be shut off forever. That could mean that everyone in the dark world dies. It could mean that they're all separated. Maybe she just assumes they're going to die and therefore punches it and gets all upset. She definitely wouldn't be happy if it was just a separation between the light world and the dark world forever. She would never get to see all the friends she made and would lose that one firm connection with Chris, which is her only friend that she's made. So this is basically a story about growing up and friendships eventually dying as you get older. I don't think so. I think it's about a story, if this reading of it is correct. I think it's more a story about accepting that a story is over, that it can't continue on forever, and that you need to be able to have a life outside of the story and still be able to appreciate what that story gave you and carry that with you. I think that's kind of the most mature way to handle stories, especially because I seem to agree with Toby Fox, so I'm just going to speak for myself, but I value the creation process. I value these stories so goddamn much. And I don't want the message to be, grow up, it's a story, get over it. Grow up and go out and do an office job for a living. That's absolutely not what the message of the story is going to be. Even if all of these pieces fall into place, the message of the story is going to be stories end and people in the real life die. Stories in real life come to a close, and it's just what do we do from there? How do we pick up the pieces knowing that we can never re-enter this story, we can never continue living this story again? And the best thing we can do is to say, hey, this story influenced me. This story helped me connect with people. Susie could say, I connected with Chris. I made a connection with Chris because of Rouse, because of Lancer, because of all this stuff, and I will carry that with me forever. Maybe even Susie will find a way to always have that dark world with her, but she won't be reliant on it anymore. She will always still be friends with Chris, regardless of whether or not she can access the dark world ever again. And she will always be friends with Rouse and Lancer, even if they can never reach the dark world again either. A true happy ending might still mean, hey, maybe they can still get to the dark world, who knows? But I think that's ultimately what it means. I don't know, as I say it, it almost kind of tries to come out as a cop-out. It's the dead never truly leave us there in our hearts forever. But that's kind of just what the point of a story is. And having a story go on forever, I have a huge pet peeve about stories that refuse to die, like Dragon Ball, for example. I appreciate the original run of it. And then Toei and all these executives say, hey, let's continue Dragon Ball. And they make a big blockbuster movie out of it, which everyone loved, called Dragon Ball Evolution. And then they made Dragon Ball GT. Well, they made Dragon Ball GT first. I'm not going to get the order right, whatever. They made Dragon Ball GT. They made Dragon Ball Super. They're making Dragon Ball Superheroes. They're making Dragon Ball Superhero, the movie. And it's going to continue forever with Daima and whatever's next after that and so on. Dragon Ball is never going to be allowed to die now. It is a zombie. And that's unfortunate because it is going on forever. Just like Susie would probably like it to, because it's just like if Susie was into Dragon Ball, she'd be at this point in the story, she'd be like, hell yeah, it's going on forever. I never have to leave these people. I never have to let Goku be part of a story that's finished. And I don't like that. It feels like there's no artistic connection at that point anymore. Who's the creator whose heart can shine with mine, you know? What can a creator tell me when the whole point of it existing, Dragon Ball as an example, when the whole point of Dragon Ball existing is just make money now? Like, yeah, I can have fun with it. You know, there's nothing wrong with a good popcorn munching movie, but it will not shine with mine as a cursed mirror, as Toby would say, so long as there's not a creator who's putting their heart into it. And they can't put their heart into it because the story's over. Toriyama has passed away and there's no longer one creator behind this trying to tell their story. So the angel cannot exist for Dragon Ball anymore. It's been banished. And there's a lot of sadness that comes with that, even if it continues to live on as it does. This is just kind of what my interpretation of it is, based on storytelling. It's a weird one. It's not going to give us any insight into what is coming up in the story, aside from the fact that it seems like the final conflict will just be that the Dark World and the Light World will become permanently separated. Dark World might die as a whole, not sure. And then I'm not even sure if it'll be a happy ending that it does do that, or if the true happy ending is that we'll find a way to still maintain that connection while still having the maturity to realize that it doesn't have to be there. It's completely vague as a theory, but at the same time that makes me more confident in it because I don't need to nail down any specifics. Toby can write whatever story he wants, and if he wrote his own story within the parameters that I think it will go through, then I'll still be excited for every twist and turn. So that seems pretty good to me, right? It's still an exciting story, still something that I'll never have any idea of what's coming next for. But that's ultimately my theory. Yeah, I just think stories should be allowed to die. Stories should be allowed to end. And I think that I'm starting to think that's what Deltarune's kind of about, especially with Gerson saying, hey, Susie, you can't just choose eternity with this. It's not a good idea. Gerson's always the one in the right, and Susie's always the one in the wrong in that dynamic. So that is my theory about what the angel is. And hey, for anyone who watched this, thank you. I really appreciate it. I am going to be streaming more, talking more about things I like Deltarune. If you want to be on the ground floor, be one of my first viewers, I'm going to be taking doodle requests, and so that would be fun to just get those for free if you feel like watching. I'm going to try for Tuesdays. We'll see how that goes. So you can follow me on Twitch at 1000 Stupid Words or here on YouTube, 1000 Stupid Words. And thanks again for watching.